3 things you need to know. This is video 2 of 3, where we watch Laura Ingraham talk about how bad of a border deal this really was, and I couldn't do a better job myself of laying out how bad it really is. So we'll go ahead and we'll watch that, and we'll talk about it after.
We knew that it was finally released after being kept hidden from the public for months, that the Schumer-McConnell border insecurity bill would be bad. But even we didn't realize how bad. Now, just last week, he was assuring critics, including the Angle, that what was leaked out about the bill were just internet rumors, including that the bill would permit up to 5,000 migrants per day into the country. Then Senator Lankford said this.
This authority is a 5,000 authority to say if you get to 5,000, which we've been there every single day except for 7 in the last 4 months, that it completely closes the border down.
Wait. I thought that the 5,000 migrants can come in, welcome, that trigger was just an internet rumor. I mean, how long ago did we do that on the Angle? 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago? Well, in the first place, given the damage and strain Biden has already inflicted on all of you in America with the millions of migrants that have been allowed in, we shouldn't be allowing even one migrant into the country, let alone 5,000 encounters a day. It's a joke. Second, just so everyone understands this, under this supposedly tough-as-nails legislation, the border is never closed, even if you do think Mayorkas could ever be trusted to oversee things and track the numbers. Now, you don't need to take my word for it, because that's exactly what one of the architects of the bill, Senator Chris Murphy, said. The president and the Border Patrol still retain broad discretionary powers to wave people in, including thousands at a time. And unaccompanied minors don't even count toward that 5,000 threshold number. So the entire bill is a travesty. And if Lankford hadn't just been reelected in 2022, he never would be championing it. I promise you that. Here are some of the key reasons to hate the bill from Red State and lawyers at America First Legal. First, all migrant families must be released from custody. Second, only single individuals can be deported. Third, emergency powers don't affect ports of entry that still, get this, must allow a minimum of 1,400 migrants a day. Now, there are 30 ports of entry in the United States. That equals 42,000 migrants a month, or, wait for it, 504,000 migrants a year. Now, the emergency can be ignored if the president decides it's not in our national interest. The Biden team retains power to opt out of all limits on migrant numbers, because there are broad humanitarian exceptions. Mayorkas has unilateral authority to grant final asylum for individuals, which equals a rapid path to citizenship. A lot of Americans don't understand that. But when you get asylum, that's a path to citizenship. And there's a broad exception to emergency provisions, again, that everyone's touting today, based on the, quote, totality of circumstances test. That's broad enough to drive a truck through. And anyone who claims that fear of persecution or torture, and they're just reading it from a laminated card when they cross the border, is not deported. But again, instead they go through an arduous administrative process. Okay, so they'll be tied up in that for a while. And this also codifies the controversial Biden rule that allows these far-left asylum officers, not immigration judges, to rule on individual asylum claims. Oh, just for good measure, it gives them a 15% raise as well. It also includes $1.4 billion directed to providing shelters and immigration services, $36 million to hire lawyers for some illegals. Finally, there's the automatic conditional permanent resident status for migrants who entered after July 2021. In other words, this is a grab bag of goodies for the Open Borders Caucus. For every provision that sounds like enforcement, there's a way around it during the implementation. But wait a second, Laura, this is a real compromise. I heard this all day long. That's all coming from the Uniparty. You know what I say to that? Where's the compromise exactly? Because they get $60 billion that they've wanted for Ukraine, everything that they wanted. But conservatives that have cared about the border for years, decades, they get a bill that gives them nothing that they wanted on the border. And in fact, it would tie President Trump's hands if, in fact, he wins in November. And all you need to know, and I saw this yesterday, is that pro-amnesty Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy is thrilled about this legislation. He reassures the left that the emergency power to shut the border down is weak, tweeting that it has important checks on that power. It can only be used for a limited number of days per year. It sunsets in 3 years. Emergency cases that show up in between the ports still need to be accepted. The ports must process, as I said before, a minimum of 1,400 claims, meaning people a day. Let that sink in again. A minimum of 1,400 a day at 30 ports of entry. People say, well, maybe Langford and Schumer don't really know what's in the bill. Or McConnell doesn't really know what's in the bill. He's just overseeing. They know exactly what they're doing here. They thought that they could drop the text of this phony bill on Sunday, then, as you've seen today, start their media blitz before they force a vote on this on Wednesday. And then they thought that either squeak it through or that at least help Biden and hurt Trump, which is a shared goal of 90% of the uniparty.
I am proud, Leader McConnell and I, who disagree on many issues, have never worked so closely together on legislation as we did on this, because we both realize the gravity of the situation and how important passage of this legislation is.
Wait a second. Schumer now understands the gravity of the situation. Where has he been? It almost sounds like he's calling the border a crisis, after Democrats for years denied it, actually attacked us for calling it a crisis. Now, in late 2022, after millions had already flooded America, Schumer was not using the word crisis and didn't sound upset at all about the border crossers. In fact, for Schumer, it was the opposite.
We have a population that is not reproducing it on its own with the same level that it used to. The only way we're going to have a great future in America is if we welcome and embrace immigrants, the dreamers, and all of them, because our ultimate goal is to help the dreamers, but get a path to citizenship for all 11 million or however many undocumented there are here.
Path to citizenship is the goal. The key is they want the votes. And remember, the weasel words you heard there, the immigrants or however many there are here. Now remember, there can never be enough migrants to make the uniparty happy, which is why the McConnell crew refused to work with Speaker Johnson to pass H.R. 2, which was that House bill, which actually is tough and actually very clear on enforcement. So the bad faith on the part of the bill's Republican supporters is so egregious that none of them should ever work in politics again. I know that sounds harsh, but it's the way it needs to go. This bill does not make the border secure. In fact, it assures that the border remains open and massively increases number of visas and work permits allotted for families of illegals and current H-1B visa holders. Now, we think about what we need in the country today. We need more foreign workers when wages are still not keeping up with high costs. And more companies are announcing layoffs, aren't they? If you want to understand why Donald Trump remains the dominating force in American politics, remember that what you're seeing play out in the Senate right now is what he's always warned about. The damage inflicted when a bipartisan establishment is unchecked and allowed a free hand to plot against the interests and wishes of the voters. That must end with this bill. It's time to retire McConnell and everyone who attempts to perpetuate this fraud on the American public. And that's the angle.
You know, seeing the absolute massive numbers of illegals that are literally pouring across our southern border in pretty much perpetuity breaking records, one has got to ask themselves, why is this being allowed to continue? Why don't those in charge put a stop to it? They've got to have some sort of motivation for allowing it to continue. So you just try and think through this logically, and it's not hard to see why a politician would want these massive numbers to continue. I recently seen a video where it was a YouTuber that went around asking these immigrants, who do you plan on voting for? The fact that they all said, didn't say, or at least some of them didn't even say that, well, I can't vote, was kind of surprising to me. But every single one of them said Biden. Not a one of them said Trump. Every single one said Biden. And when asked why, they said, oh, because Biden, he let us come here. He wants us here. And that right there, I think, is a perfect example of why the politicians want these people to come here. Because it's a deal between them. Just like all things are a deal. They all each get something in return. The immigrants get to come here, and they get all kinds of benefits and welfare, and cash, debit cards, luxury hotel stays, you name it. And in return, the Democrats just want their vote. I mean, if think about it like that, if you're one of the illegal immigrants, that's a pretty good fucking deal right there. I would take that deal if I was an immigrant. Because, I mean, look how much you get and how little in return you have to give. And it's not like an outspoken deal. It's not like, they met somewhere in a back alley room and made the deal together. It's just a mutual understanding. It's wasn't a negotiation like, here's what I'll give you and just give me the vote. It's a mutual understanding between the two. But they're trying to spin the whole thing as being Trump's fault. The massive immigration numbers are all Trump's fault. Which is not really anything new. They always try and spin it as somehow it's Trump or the Republicans' fault. But in this particular instance, it makes it even more ridiculous. And there's just no words to explain how ridiculous. And the fact that they think that they can actually make that point and make it stick just shows how long they've been able to get away with everything that they've been getting away with. They're trying to blame the Republicans that they killed the so-called border deal. And that bill was so bad, no Republicans should have ever even bothered pretending to negotiate about it. Because all it was a trap set by the Democrats to be able to give them something to take home back to their constituents. Like, oh, see, we wanted to do something about the border, but those pesky Republicans killed it. And will that work on some people? Yeah, it'll work on some people. It's not going to work on everybody, though, and I don't think it'll work on most of them. Because it's like, all right, you've had 3 years. 3 years to secure the border, and you've done less than nothing. In fact, the whole time that you've done less than nothing, you've been trying to act like you've done a whole lot. Oh, we gotta, fix the broken immigration system that Trump left us. I could kind of see how from their perspective it might be that way, because, right now they think it's fixed, pretty much. And Trump, he had the lowest crossings in 45 years. So the Democrats want it wide open to get all the votes. So I could see how they could say it was broken, but they sure as shit didn't fix it. And so all they want to do is just turn these into votes. I mean, just think of it from a logical point of view. What are they getting out of it? And I think it's obvious. Well, anyways, my next video will be, how the Mexicans, and other immigrants feel about coming here. I guess, some will be surprised. I was surprised, but then again, I guess I really wasn't, that they actually feel like they have a right to come here. I'll read you an article that I found from 2005 for my next video. Hope to see you then. If you got anything from this, like or subscribe. New channel, it would help me out a lot, and I'd appreciate it. Thank you.